Hi everyone, Onimorin here, and today I've got another batch of HDMI signal generators on the bench. If you watched my previous repair video on Instagram or TikTok, you might already recognize these devices, because I managed to repair one of these units some time ago. The client was really happy with the results, so after a while he sent me more of them, this time with a very similar issue. The previous repair was mainly focused on a damaged USB connector that someone had replaced earlier by directly soldering wires to the board. And let's be honest, technically it worked, but the workmanship left a lot to be desired. This time I decided to approach it completely differently, and I will just say this: by the end of the video you'll see the solution I came up with, which in my opinion is much cleaner, more durable and far more professional. So I started by fully disassembling each HDMI signal generator. The boards actually look very clean overall, and visually it's hard to spot any major damage at first glance. All USB ports will be removed, and on top of that I'll also replace the capacitors, both SMD and throw-hole ones. Before continuing with the teardown, I decided to inspect one of the USB connectors under the microscope to check if there were any visible signs of damage. The connector itself is clearly loose, and the plastic insert inside is heavily worn out and simply fatigued from repeated cabling section over time. Among these generators I also came across a case very similar to the one I had before. Once again, they used the exact same repair method. In several places the previous repair shop also ripped parts off the PCB, so some traces will need to be reconstructed as well. This one was labeled as USB short, and unlike the others, there were no previously soldered wires inside anymore. So now I have to carefully sort and properly label every single unit. I move on to removing the capacitors, because after the previous repair I still had a batch of replacement parts left, so I can immediately solder in fresh components. At the same time, I remove all of the earlier wire modifications, and here you can see the new installed capacitors, and now it's time to remove the USB connectors. I heated them up using hot air, while simultaneously heating the round parts with a soldering iron. After a short moment, the connector practically lifted itself off the board. I repeat the same process for the remaining ports. At this point, all USB connectors are removed, and all capacitors have been replaced, both the SMD and the standard ones. And now, it's time for the most interesting part of this project, the solution I came up with during this repair. I found special FPC connectors that could completely change the way these generators are repaired, and eliminate the problem of improvised wires soldered directly onto the PCB. You will see what the final modification looks like in part 2 of this repair.